What's going on, everybody? It appears we are officially live for the evening. So let's welcome everybody to the program tonight to this week's installment of Wisdom Wednesday. Coach Smith coming to you. Actually coming to you from my house. I essentially closed up, felt this one may or may not become a longer session. So closed up the shop, headed back to the house. Got situated here, got some bowling on in front of me in the background coming on at 8 o'clock. FS1, make sure you're tuning in tonight to watch the Scorpion Championship. And hopefully we'll see Doherty pull through and bring another one home for the Brands of Brunswick tonight. So here we are. Last Wednesday we missed, unfortunately had a little bit of an accident and got that taken care of, but we're back on for programming this week. And decided to do a little bit of a different approach this week, where instead of having a dedicated segment that was essentially just focused in on one item or two items, I thought, hey, why don't we just do a live program, and we'll come on here and you basically have an open forum to essentially start asking me questions that you had come to mind. Things you may want to know, whether it's ball technology, coaching aspect, just anything is pretty much fair game. So, as soon as everybody's ready, they're coming on here. We're about 2 minutes in. Looks like we got about 30, 35 people into the room. And you can start firing away any questions you may have. And I'll do my best to hit each and every one of them and try to make sure that I answer everything accordingly, and we'll go from there. So looks like the audio is good this evening. Double verified it before I came on. Pete Brennan, good evening, sir. Glad to have you on the program. Nice to see you back for a second day in a row. If you're just stopping into the room again, make sure you stop by, say hello on the feed. Let me know who's all out there. And I will essentially answer whatever I can for you. Yeah, Eddie, it is a can of worms, but you know what? What the heck? I felt it was one of those things where, I get so many questions that come through via email, day in and day out, text messages, Facebook. And essentially, I do my best to, answer each and every one of them as they come through as time permits. But it's okay. I think it's kind of a cool way to do it, to essentially let people ask questions. I think sometimes people, are a little tentative to ask in public settings, or maybe there's a question they were a little leery of asking. And to be honest with you, whether it's in bowling or if it's in life or anything that you're talking through, I think it's good for multiple people to hear it, because it may be something that maybe you haven't thought of before, or a question that never came to your mind that can help to be kind of applied there and be helpful to you moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and we're going to see what we can answer here. So let me scroll here. Christine Weber, welcome back. Glad to see you. Aaron, hopefully Carrie and I can get together tomorrow night. Yeah, we're crossing our fingers. Well, you're going to need a little Jeff time, a little TLC on the machines in there. I did not get them running today. I can tell you that. I'm very backed up in the center. But I will do my best, try to have something up and running for you by, I think you guys, girls, we're talking about 7 p.m. tomorrow. So, Ty Carl, thanks for stopping by here. Great bowling over the weekend, man. You made a nice little run. Nice seeing you bowling Sunday. Zenith Pro looked really good going down the lane. Yeah, it was a choice for me on a very wet, dry condition, or wet dirt, as I like to refer to it. But you bowled phenomenal, and that Prism Warp you were throwing looked really good. So, well, first one kind of coming through here. Looks like it's coming through YouTube. Mark Walters, what is the difference between conventional fingers versus rubber grips? This is kind of a two-part one. I think I can answer for you here, Mark. So, and what Mark's referring to is, fingers just drilled in, no grips versus grips. And not only is there grips, but there's different types that are out there. And the biggest differences that I can tell you between the two is really comes down to feel more than anything. For the individuals that like conventional with no grips, they like kind of the firmness, the non-wear, and the things that go there. But the one thing that you do have a main difference on when you're using grips is you essentially actually get a promotion of a little more down lane movement. And the reason is that grips actually slow the release of the fingers down a little bit. Now, there's different types of grips. Whether you're using a lift, a semi, you got nubs, you got ovals, you got all kinds of different ones that are out there. And the characteristics of those are all different as well. Even those, when it comes to shape, if you look at Vice versus Ultimate versus Turbo, anybody else that's out there, there's small nuances and differences in the actual shape, even when it comes down to an oval or a lift. Some people use, rubber inserts or the lift portion to give a little more security, or the flatness on the front of the finger. But you just got to be careful when you're using those, because most of them at about 3/16 of forward pitch or towards your palm on each one of those balls. So it really comes down to being a feel thing, Mark. I mean, for me, myself, I use kind of a modified version of a vacuum grip, meaning that the top of the holes on mine are a little bigger to allow for them to stretch. But I actually don't have a lot of flexibility left in my fingers from all the years of wear and tear. So I actually have a ton of reverse pitch in my fingers. I'm very laid out. So I utilize ovals with nubs on them to give me a little bit of feel, because of the amount of reverse that I have in the fingers. So, every single person's different. I think it's important to kind of, talk through it with your shop operator and what's comfortable. Definitely, if you're a person that retains water, you swell a lot, I'm going to lean towards using some grips and probably the vacuum variety there. So good question to start us off, big one. But the other thing, feel and difference in down lane movement. Okay. Ryan Snyder, strategies for combating wet dry. That's the $1 million question, right? Strategies for wet dry. I'm actually one of those guys that really doesn't like bowling on the wet dry. The biggest thing I can tell you to try to do wet dry is to make sure that you're using actually enough surface to get the bowling ball to slow down a little more, and essentially kind of blend it. The more you can do to try to play more of the front portion of the lane against what we refer to as the oil line or the shim, the better off you're going to be. If you have extreme wet dry conditions, you really want to stay away from super whippy balls, things that have very small val angle drillings, meaning that when it sees friction, it immediately stands up and wants to bite the lane. And some people like to go and they use some shorter pin to paps on some layouts. You can do that to kind of get the bowling ball to flare a little less, and makes the bowling ball a little more stable down lane, and it doesn't really get a little too crazy in the hook phase of the bowling ball before it rolls forward. So, but when you're combating the wet dry, you're combating anything else. I mean, it's essentially getting your making sure you're using enough of the wet. And if you're going to have to bounce it off the dry, make sure you're using more control pieces. You're really not going to want to use a lot of, super high RG and super high diff bowling balls that are going to, especially if you're heavy handed or slower ball speed, those are just going to dance off the end of the pattern too much. Tim Spangler, looks like, hopefully I get most of this up there. Tim, I bowl in a scratch league, and 1 week my legs are tired from working 5 straight days, and the following week I have fresh legs. Any suggestions on when my legs are tired on what to do to help me keep more consistent bowling? When I'm tired and have weaker legs, it's a lot tougher. It very much so. And Tim, I think it's a really good, kind of point you're making too. The legs being so important to our game is a critical aspect to essentially bowling well. Because when you really break down the game, you need to understand that this really isn't about your arm and your upper body and the things along those lines. What I like to do when I express kind of the modern game and where we're going with bowling is you got to treat your legs as basically your motor, right? We don't walk on our hands to get to the foul line. So our legs and our core strengths and our thing like that is what's going to make us be more dynamic when we get into, repeating shots. So when your legs are tired and you're feeling a little sluggish, you probably tend to not feel like you can be as aggressive. And generally what happens is when you're not being aggressive going into the line and using those legs more, and it's slowing you down, it's changing your tempo, so you're essentially not really accelerating into the foul line like you should be, because too often we learned over the years where you'd hear people say slow down, and I will tell you flat out. I mean, you watch the best players in the game, the best players in your leagues. You're going to see a common theme that they're accelerating into the line, they're using their foot speed to generate power. um, but the one thing I think you want to think of in with your legs, and if your legs are feeling tired, Tim, is I'm not sure if you ever looked at it this way before, but make sure you're drinking enough fluids. And I don't mean beer. We all love to drink beer while we're there, but fluids are really going to keep you hydrated and essentially keep the muscles firing correctly. When you feel sluggish, don't go after things that are laden with sugar and things along those lines. You want to actually go in, you want to drink more water. You could do Gatorade, you could do Powerades, things like that, where it's going to, kind of restore electrolytes and keep the muscles firing. And you're going to feel that your legs are going to be more under you than not. If you allow yourself to get more on the dehydrated side, you're actually going to feel like your flexibility and the looseness of your legs and your swing and everything else are actually going to tighten up, and you're going to continue to feel sluggish. The other thing is, you definitely don't want to be eating like super big meals loaded with carbohydrate or sodium or stuff before you bowl as well. Carbs can help to give you energy, but the sodium portion of it is really going to take away from where that retention of the water is going to be, and it takes away from the dynamics of the body and what the legs can do for you. So take a look at that. I don't know what it's in. It's obviously it's not about diet. I mean, exercise is a big portion of it too. Try to make sure, like, even if you are feeling tired and you're getting into league night, try to make sure that you're essentially still trying to stretch, get those muscles firing the best you can, essentially before you go and you even hit practice time there. All right, Pete, we got here. I work on line drills, but when I bowl league, I release the ball at a 10-4 or 9-3 position. How can I get a better release position? Well, Pete, I mean, it's again, that's kind of a loaded question a little bit. I mean, I can't say that there's any one way or any one release that is perfect. Okay. Um, what I think is the better way to look at this is, it's great to do line drills and work on releasing a ball, and there's a multitude of things that are out there. But the biggest thing I think that's important for you or for any player that's listening along on here is to understand that no matter what you're practicing, you want to make sure you're focusing on something that you can repeat. Okay, because repetition and doing things the same way are far more important than trying to tear yourself down and make you feel like you have to have some type of a robot like release. Okay. I'll use myself as an example. It's a perfect way of, for me to explain it. Okay. I've had a ton of injuries over the years. I actually broke this bone off of my elbow when I was younger, and I actually cannot straighten my arm the entire way, and my hand will not open up. So, um, for myself, what I teach and try to get the hand in a good position in the back, my hand actually collapses to the inside a little bit in my backswing, which, if I would see that with a client, I would immediately think there's probably an issue with ball fit. But mine is not my ball fit related. It's that it actually hurts for me to try and make my hand go in a position that it's not comfortable doing. So it took a long time of me convincing myself, as putting the coaching hat on first, to really get across and understand and to talk through it to myself to say, hey, we need to do what I can repeat. And when you do that and you practice the things that you're really good at or that is unique to you, you're going to find that your consistency and the things you're working on to do that time and time again is going to go further and yield better results than the other way. I could use other examples. Too often I see, kids go off to college through the years, even when I was younger, right? And they go to programs, and depending on what program they're involved in, they basically tear them down and they rebuild them into the way that that program sees how, a person is supposed to bowl. Okay. And, I'm here to tell you, I'm going to be the first to tell you as a coach, and how I do training with individuals out there is, you want to make the best version of yourself, not the best version of something you saw. All right. So those drills, Pete, I mean, if you're trying to work on doing, 10 to 4 or 9 to 3 and how you're getting out of the ball, or you're trying to increase revolutions and stuff. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I think what I'd like to see from my perspective is Pete, is if you could, reach out to me on Facebook. Just go to the Pure Bowling page and shoot me a private message, and maybe shoot me over a video of what your maybe full release is, and what you're working on and stuff, and maybe a little bit of a description of what you're trying to accomplish by doing the 10 to 4, the 9 to 3, and I can get you pointed in the direction, or maybe we can refine something a little bit through video and through talking back and forth to help you kind of get to where you're going at. Because I want to make sure I'm not obviously going to be able to answer the full question without seeing you roll the ball. So kick that on over to me, and I'll take a look at it for you. Okay. All right. Do I have Vito's asking, do I have a pair of pants like Kyle Troop? Well, I do not. I do not wear the loud pants. Yeah, I definitely have some friends that do that wear the loud pants. Joey Pants is obviously one of my roommates out in tour. But yeah, I'm not going to pull those off. I'm not a small guy, so I think I just look like a big old clown wearing that. So I just stick to the general, just khaki colors, grays, things like that. Standard pants. They get a little louder with shirts and stuff. I have a couple pretty unique jerseys and stuff that I like to wear. I like splash of color with that more than anything else. All right, Patrick Abrams. For someone who doesn't have a high rev rate, what are some tips or tricks to try to get more revs? Man, okay, so I'm going to go back, Patrick. Okay, and I'm not picking on you here, okay, but I know it's obviously that you're local. It's one that I say so much. So one portion about trying to generate more power, more revolutions is to truly embrace how much your lower body has to be engaged to get you in a position to allow it. All right. The one thing that you're going to see, and Patrick, I'll say this because Patrick, you're very upright at the line, right? You're very upper body oriented when you throw it. Um, and one of the things we've talked about, minimally through, the last couple months or so is really trying to use the lower body to essentially get you in a position that's going to allow you to actually rotate the ball a little more. When you're trying to increase rev rate and you're trying to do those things, it's really more about first where you are at a finishing position in relationship to where your hand is and how your legs are driving into the line. All right. To be behind a bowling ball when you're standing straight up with little to no knee bend and trying to do it with all upper body really does take one of two things. If you can accomplish it that way, you have an incredibly strong wrist. You could have huge forearms where you can muscle it. But Patrick, you're more of a slender guy, kind of a gym rat kind of guy there. And really, what we got to do is get you into a more athletic position where you're driving into the line and accelerating those feet. Because again, it's not really hard to increase rev rate once you get the legs engaged. Then it becomes getting your hand into a proper position and then allowing the bowling balls to basically do the work. Because rev rate can be deceiving. If you look at individuals that make shows pretty frequently, like look at Frankie, right? Lavoie, he's not touted as a high rev guy or a power player or anything like that. But what you'll notice is Frankie really is utilizing those legs, getting the bowling ball started, and then he's doing it more with touch and speed. All right. Revolutions are very hard to come by as well if your hand is on the outside of the bowling ball at release. So again, to just say, make sure you keep your hand to the inside of the ball or work the inside of the bowling ball isn't really going to help anybody. For me to say that, it's something that you have to see, but to try to start working up the back of the ball or working the inside of the bowling ball, we first got to get your legs and your body position correct in order to allow the hand to get to that spot. Okay. If you're upright and you're doing it all with upper body, you're going to really struggle to keep your hand under the ball unless you're incredibly, incredibly strong. Um, One of the things, and you saw above somebody was saying about doing drills and stuff. I mean, obviously, some stationary no step drills, and you can do these at home to really put your body in a position and to learn where your hand needs to be to actually revolve around a ball a little more is a huge one. The other one you can do is at home as well, right, Patrick? You can get yourself like a Nerf ball, all right, and Nerf balls are good, like the old spiral versions. Something a little smaller that fits in your hand, and give you that feeling like when you're on the underside of the ball and you're going to throw an underhand spiral coming through the ball. That's a good motion of what a hand actually does in the bottom. But again, if you just think that revolutions come from when I get to the bottom of the swing, I got to hit it with my hand and my wrist and everything. I got to give it everything it's got. It's just not the case, right? You don't have to do that. When you get the body and the hand in a position that makes more sense, you will essentially go a lot further in seeing your bowling ball and increasing rev rate. And if you need a testament to that, talk to the girlfriend, talk to Carrie, because we spent a lot of time with a lower rev player, getting her to get the ball to pick up in different ways and how to utilize the body to make it happen. Looks like Vito, you had another one here. So this one's coming to us through what's this? YouTube. Okay, so is short pin drilling truly a substitute for urethane? I've noticed a few people in leagues around my are utilizing more short pin layouts lately. Yes and no. Okay, I'm going to answer this both directions, and here's why I'm saying that. Short pin layouts, essentially, what they're doing with that is they're reducing flare. Okay, so if you think of a traditional urethane-based bowling ball, urethane balls, with the way that the covers are created, they don't absorb oil. Okay, and they don't flare. So the axis, and what that really means is as you're throwing it down the lane, the axis is not migrating to make the bowling ball search for a surface that doesn't have oil on it. It's not going to flare. Okay. So when you're doing that with a short pin ball, you're essentially just taking the flare potential of a bigger bowling ball and you're making it tighter. Okay. So you're making it roll more true to what it's doing. Now, to answer your question, there is definitely some advantages to both sides of it. Okay. A urethane bowling ball, I'm not going to throw a urethane bowling ball on house or in a team setting. I'm just not going to do it because that bowling ball is going to take oil off the front part of the lane, and it's definitely going to deposit it down lane because it's not soaking it in. The short pin balls in league, if you want to kind of stay right and you want to trap it and give you more of a smoother, more stable motion similar to urethane, you could stay on that a lot longer because it is, even though it's going to flare less, it is going to absorb, and you're not going to get the carry down that a urethane ball would do, because these resin balls don't really carry down. What they're really doing is stripping it off the front, and they're not putting it anyway. So when the fronts of the lanes start to hook, it makes it feel tighter down lane, and that's where it gets confusing because people call that carry down. That happens with the urethane ball. Doesn't really happen that much with resin. It can, because it can pick up multiple strips, but the deposits it's laying down lane are not the same. Now, a urethane ball, no matter how you look at it versus a short pin ball, a urethane ball is designed to play more of the front portion of the lane. All right. I can tell you that I have more control personally using a urethane ball to control the front part of the lane than I do a short pin reactive ball. The short pin reactive ball, once that core sees friction down lane, for me, even with a 1-inch pin, unless I'm using an incredible amount of surface on the bowling ball, that bowling ball is still going to read the body of the lane harder, and it's still going to end up being more ball than I want to see off the end of the pattern. Now, that is different depending on what your rev rate is, how much tilt you have. It's different for each player. So the reason I said both, okay, is because for a person's parameters, the urethane option may be the better for them on a pattern, but it doesn't mean that the short pin drilling is a substitute for every single player. It absolutely does work for certain styles. Whereas there's certain styles that have absolutely no reason to be trying to use a urethane bowling ball either. Again, it's two schools of thought trying to do some of the same motions, but preserve the pattern a little differently. If I hit a shorter pattern where I want to control the fronts and do things along those lines, I'm absolutely going to use urethane. I use it quite a bit. And it really does allow me to see the lane a little differently, because we talked on multiple sessions before here that you essentially, no matter what pattern length you're on, ball has to skid, it's got a hook, it's got to roll. And if your bowling ball is still in the hook phase at the end of the pattern length and not in a forward roll, you're going to bowl bad. Okay. You're not going to bowl good. It's about matching up for the person. So, Vito, I hope that answered you. My answer at the end really is, it's very specific to the person. It's going to work really well for some people, and it's not so much for others. And I don't think there's one way, you could fight back and forth and have an opinion on both sides of it. But, whatever works best for you. If you're a little unsure what may or may not work for you, and again, as I said to Pete, about sending a video, if anybody's ever curious and they want to send videos over, I can gladly take a look. I can get a pretty rough estimate by seeing your ball roll, what your pretty much what your tilt is, without measuring. I can at least get a baseline for it and what your axis rotation is, and give you an idea if it may be something that you want to look at as an option to put in your bag. Good question. What is it? Very detailed answer. We will work on drinking more water and Gatorade. A bowl with Colin. He has been helping me too. That's good. Colin, I'm assuming you mean Fraunfelder. I could be wrong, but Fraunfelder's working on his game very hard. Just went through a massive refit with me a little while ago. Just drove him up an obsession tour, and looks pretty darn good. He bowled really good over the weekend again, and it's pretty exciting to see when the clients start seeing some of that success. All right, what else do we got out there? I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss anything that's coming through, so I'm going to scroll back up, but gladly answer anything that I can for you. Strategies, what try? All right, just taking a peek up here, trying to see what it's looking like here on TV as well. Looks like Prather's struggling a little bit early here. I got it on in front of me here because I'm at the house, so it's fun to see. What else we got out there, gang? I've been talking for quite a bit already here for 30 minutes, but anything is essentially fair game, and try to do my best to answer. I don't know if I have questions coming through here, but I definitely have my phone going off as well. All right. All right. So, anybody else out there? I don't want to actually think I'm pretty caught up here. I got about 30 some people in the feed here. I know there's more than just these couple individuals that are on here. Is there any of them that I answered for you so far that that maybe I didn't get to? Gotta control emotions. Are you asking how, Chris? Or I don't know if this is a question or a comment. Like, are you asking how do you control emotions? Give me a little more insight of what you're looking for there, bud, and I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability here. Give him 2 seconds on that one, and then I'll start talking on a few. Best way to control our emotions while struggling. Okay, I mean and I think this really comes to the mental aspect of it, and I think the easiest thing I think for any player, okay, any time that we put our shoes on and we bowl, whether it's league, tournament time, things along those, we want to perform. All right, we want to do well, and I think the first thing that I personally like to um, really reflect back on is I like people to think of a kid, okay, that you see videos on whether they're using you know their parents put up the first time they threw a bowling ball, or the first time they got a strike or a spare, or when they got a ball to go down the dinosaur ramp, right? And when you see the true emotion and fun they're having is probably what I try to channel for myself and remind myself every time I put my shoes on. Okay. And that is going back to essentially remember that I started this game and I fell in love with this game because of that, you know, as a childhood, and doing it for the first time, and getting better at it, and getting to the point where you felt like you know you were excelling at something, and really understanding that this game is supposed to be fun. Yeah, it can get frustrating, okay? But at the end of the day, this is a game, right? We're playing a game. We're trying to do the best that we can. And we have to remember that we're human, all right? And every time that we don't excel at something, we learn. We learn from failure. And whether you go and you do quotes like, Michael Jordan did quotes all the time where, he's made, X amount of game-winning shots, and you look at how many game-winning shots he took that he missed, far outweighs the ones that he made. Okay. So as great as he was, he had to learn from failure. So you have to channel that and understand why you do this game, right? And you do this game because you love it. All right. So when you essentially take and put yourself on a little bit of time out, and you understand that um, this is a game where you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed, and you change your mindset to go at it and look at taking the positive out of a struggle. I'll it's not fun to bowl poorly, but at the end of the day, you have to really just embrace the fact that we're still getting to do what we love to do, right? So when you go and you're struggling, just take a deep breath and understand that this isn't affecting your health. This isn't affecting your job. This isn't changing you as a person. And I hate to say it, but I think maybe take the message that I said yesterday, and I don't have it up here to flash today, but a lot of everybody that tuned in yesterday knows I just started a new clothing line, and some inspirational quotes and stuff, and it's be better than you were yesterday, right? So my better than yesterday collection essentially is focused in on is understanding that when I go out and do it tomorrow, I'm going to do it better than I did the day before. And maybe I'm not going to X, Y, and Z isn't going to yield as high of a score, but I myself am going to be better at the way that I approach it. Um, you know, especially if you're getting worked up in league, I don't think any of us bowl league with friends or family or anything, and they get mad when we bowl bad. I know I don't get mad at my teammates if they bowl bad. I bust on them and make fun of them a little bit and try to be a little lighthearted and stuff. But you got to find a way to really sit back and enjoy the game. Enjoy how incredibly hard it is to be good at it. Enjoy the struggles. Enjoy the process, and do it better than you did the day before. So there's no one thing you can put your finger on, Chris, to just say control your emotions better, but I can tell you, and anybody can tell you, especially the advanced players, that if you dwell on anything in the past, the last shot that you made, you're not going to essentially go up there and make your best shot the next time around. So just let it go. You got to let it go. Short term memory. All right. What we got here? Paul Moore, what difference will a older bowler see dropping down 15 to 14 pounds? I guess twofold answer there too. A lot of times you're going to see some differences in the core numbers of the bowling balls. You're going to see differences in the RGs change a little bit and the differentials. But I think the biggest benefit I think you want to focus on is if you have a player that is in 15-pound equipment and is maybe was a player that was enjoying having a pretty decent release and feeling like they could manipulate the bowling ball and stay behind it a little bit more, and they're starting to feel now like maybe the wrist isn't in a good position and they can't control the ball quite as much. You really want to get it on video. And the 14, they may immediately see that they're able to keep their hand in a better position with it, just from the 1 pound difference. Okay. I will tell you, when people go from 15 to 14 or from 16 to 15 or 14 to 13, it doesn't matter. Your timing's going to change, right? You're changing the entire pendulum of your swing. So I do, clients will ask sometimes too, should I throw a lighter spare ball or heavier spare ball or anything along those lines? And my, immediate response is no, I don't like to see that, because it changes the swing plane so much. But again, the biggest difference they're going to see there, they may get a little help from it too, because the core numbers are changing, especially if they are, their ball speed is dropping. Once they go into the lighter weight, they're going to get a little more push out of the ball as well. What do we got here? Pete, another question. A year ago, I bought a bulk onyx vibe. It has a 1-inch pin and 4-ounce top weight. I had it drilled pin down. Was that a bad move? Well, I mean, a 1-inch pin on a symmetrical ball. I mean, it basically, all you were doing to that was essentially, smoothing it out. I mean, on a symmetrical bowling ball now, if you're not allowed to use, with no weight holes and stuff, a 1-inch pin on that is vastly different than using a 1-inch pin when we used to use holes. It's not a bad move. I mean, again, it comes down to the style of the bowler. For me, if I'm going to drill a 1-inch pin on a ball, it's not going to be a symmetric. I would do it on an asymmetric bowling ball because, again, the whole thought process behind a short pin on a versus urethane is doing it on a bigger ball to utilize the bigger core for more hitting power when you're playing the straighter angles. Because the thought process is that a short pin ball with a bigger core is going to basically, at impact or inertia, is going to have more of a punch to it than a urethane ball, not going through the pins the same way. A black onyx vibe, I mean, a pretty smooth piece in its own right. I don't know if it was the re-release or the original. I mean, the original was super, super clean. Again, it depends on the style. I mean, if you want to play if you want to play in the dry and play them to the right, and your rev rate isn't going to overtake that, it could be perfectly good for you, Pete. But for someone like myself or another player that's on here, it could be completely wrong. I mean, the big portion of that is really getting hooked up with an individual that can really help you from the shop side of it to optimize your layouts that are specific to you. And if you're working with a pro shop operator in your area, make sure they're getting on the lanes with you. They're taking all the critical parameters they need to essentially get you into the proper bowling ball with something that's going to aesthetically see the lane correctly for you. Oh, looks like Carrie is popping in. How can someone make their wrist stronger to help it stay in a better position? I mean, I don't know if that's why Mark is saying go to the weight room. Could be that. Sorry, I got to adjust here. Sitting. Go to the weight room. I mean, in all reality, if you're trying to essentially increase strength of the wrist, you can get something as simple as some 2-pound weights or 3-pound weights, depending on what your strength is, and obviously going down and up with that, strengthening that portion of the wrist. Other people will do it too to make feel in the fingers, is they'll put a lighter weight one on the fingertips, and they'll essentially just let them fall, let it come back up. I think the biggest thing for strengthening the wrist, and I think what you're trying to kind of insinuate there is, not breaking the wrist, getting a wrist in a stronger position. The biggest thing, once you have the body in the right position, is to make sure that you have your thumb in basically the up position through the bottom of the ball. Okay, so if you think about it this way, like individuals that use wrist guards or don't use wrist guards, okay, if you're at release and your wrist breaks, okay, your thumb then is immediately going to point down towards the lane. Okay, so combination of that happening coming from the top. If your thumb and hand is not in a good spot and the thumb's going to go down, you're going to have very little leverage, right? Because when the wrist breaks, the thumb goes down, the swing generally gets steeper, and you have basically no power at the bottom of the swing. So you're kind of on the top or the top outside of the ball. Not a lot of places your hand can go to kind of to hit it. So one thing I do with a lot of clients, and that's, some of them have wrist guards and things like that. We can use that as a tool to essentially help them understand it. Is maintaining the wrist in a firm or a strong position through the bottom of the swing, is to focus on that thumb being up as long as possible through the bottom of the swing. Because again, when you put your thumb in a bowling ball, if you utilize your thumb, your thumb doesn't do anything. Okay, it doesn't do anything to increase ball motion. All it really does is gets in the way. That's essentially why, two-handers or no thumbers or anything you want there, why they can increase rev rate so much, because the thumb isn't in the way of allowing them to really get after it. Okay, the thumb's just along for the ride. But by having that thumb in the relaxed position and focusing on keeping the thumb up through the bottom and coming through it, it'll essentially actually make this portion of the wrist in a firmer position to help you stay behind it longer and not thumb the ball down. Again, Mark was joking about it by, missing the weight room or doing things along those lines. But anything you do with any type of weight training can be done with the wrist. It can be done with the forearms. It can be done with the fingers, to strengthen that portion of it. So just gotta do some simple exercises there. If I think about it, I can try to tape some of those as well and get them up for you guys. What else do we got here? Anybody else? We're at about 42 minutes. I've been talking already. You guys really like hearing me talk that long? It's maybe like one or two more in here. Keep looking at my phone because my phone is going off, and I try to answer as many questions as per. Anyone else out there? You guys are pretty easy on me. Eddie thought it was going to open up a can of worms, but none of them were really too far fetched on here. Any hard ones out there? All right, we'll give it one more minute here, and then if I don't see any other ones come through, I'll cut it off for the night. Not a problem at all. What do we got here? Not sure. Creating versatility and ball speed. I guess what you're asking there, Ryan, is maybe how to create versatility in your ball speed, and I'm going to give you the most simple answers I can, and it really comes down to your foot speed. You cannot generate power the correct way without having foot speed. So if there's any parents that are on here and listening, this is a good one to listen to, especially if your child is younger, does not have the strength and stamina. One big critical error I see too often from coaches that have been doing it for a long time, and is telling kids to slow down. Okay, and that's just wrong. Okay, we need to understand that power comes from the motor, and again, the motor is the legs. So if you want to create differences in the speed in which you want the bowling ball to get down, it is a lot easier to create and leverage speed using your legs than it is trying to physically throw the ball harder. And I don't like the word throw because in this game we should be rolling, not throwing. All right. When I think about throwing something, I think about throwing a baseball. When I think about bowling, I think about rolling it. All right. So it doesn't matter if I'm trying to be soft at the bottom or if I'm trying to be firm, I am still trying to roll the bowling ball to the spot that I want to get it to on the lane. Okay. I'm not trying to throw it to a spot. When you really sit and let that hit home, um, and essentially understand that you don't want to throw it a mark, you want to roll it to a mark. Power, release, speed, everything starts to make more sense because it is a lot easier to replicate and repeat what you're trying to do. So if I increase my foot speed, all right, my swing is going to naturally follow me as well, and I'm going to create and harness additional power through the bottom, which is going to equate into speed. When I'm going to go slow it down, I'm not saying we're going to slow our feet down a ton. You can do that with being soft, but you generate your normal foot speed, and then you're going to generate extra foot speed. That's how you're going to get versatility and ball speed. Here is what I hate. Okay. And I hate to use the word hate, but I'm going to please do not do this. Okay. Too often, again, with coaches, when somebody wants to generate ball speed, they tell them, okay, well, drop the ball down in your stance, put it here in your stance. If you want to increase ball speed, bring it up here. Okay. So, what I'm explaining to you here is when you do that, all right, yes, can you get a longer pendulum and create some speed, more speed with your swing? You sure can. But what you're doing is you are completely changing your timing. All right. So if you make these moves without moving your feet back or forward on the approach to allow for the elongated swing to make up its time, you are only going to make yourself steep. You're going to thumb it down faster and you're going to lose pin carry. You're not increasing ball speed. So please, if you hear coaches saying that and they're working with you or they're trying something and they just move you from here to here because they want to see you throw it a little harder, that doesn't work. All right. It just doesn't work. You need to realize what the legs do for you in your game. All right. You want to maintain as much as possible having a fluid, a little shallower, and not a steep swing. And you're going to see because throwing it harder does not equate into striking. Throwing it harder with proper rotation and getting it through the pins is a much different story. All right. I can explain that and, in way more detail. If you are local to me here, I really do encourage you, if you have the opportunity to come see me in at the center, set up a appointment to get a lesson and really truly learn some things that you can really take back. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, that you can really apply to your own game. Another one came through, as a pro shop operator, how often do you measure someone's PAP? I definitely will not measure their PAP every single time they come in for a new ball, unless we have been working with them, really hard on changing basically hand position and getting their hand in a better spot on the bottom. So essentially, let's say I have an individual who was, maybe a little more spinny, and we've changed some ball fit and we've done some things to try to get the hand and the body in a better position. We will essentially remeasure that PAP, maybe before we drill a new ball. But if it's let me give you like an example. If it was for myself or another player that's pretty versed in changing hand positions and kind of where we want to be, my access point really doesn't change that often. Okay. The other thing you really got to be careful with is, and I see this error so often, is when people do get their access points checked, you really got to be doing it with a bowling ball that doesn't have any core dynamics at all. Specifically, I'd love to see you do it with a spare ball. It doesn't matter what pins you hit. A natural release with a spare ball is going to give you the most accurate one. If not, it really has to be a low flaring or essentially no flaring ball. We don't want the core dynamics to be essentially changing what your axis is, because the stronger that bowling ball is, especially with an asymmetric ball, as soon as you let it go, you're going to get axis migration and it's going to pull the first flare ring down anyway. So all that stuff is part of the equation when we're drilling precision bowling balls for individuals. And when you come in, just remember too, PAP is not PAP is important, but tilt and axis rotation are equally as important, and those are needed to really redefine ball motion. Pete, I did recommend your show on wrist braces to a person on CTD staff page. Good. Glad to hear that. Pete, anything we can do to help individuals out, and learn a little more about, the differences in the game and things along those lines. All right. Anyone else? Any last minute ones that are on there? All right. Well, I will tell you what, since we were at the 50-minute mark, I will kind of wrap it up there. And again, as I ended up on last night's show, super, excited to, announce that new line of, Cool Wick apparel that I've launched on our Better Than Yesterday brand. And, go on over to Cool Wick and check it out. There's so many other amazing products from that company, but, Support Us yesterday was the launch of that line, and it went over very well. We had a really big first day, and I can't wait to offer, some more of the stuff moving forward and continuing to try and help everybody be the best version of themselves out there. If you are bowling this weekend, I hope everybody is, going to do so to the best of their abilities and have all the strike guys on their side. We all need that. I had it 2 weeks ago and had some really good fortune with having everything carry my way. I myself headed up to Buffalo. So if you are from up in that area and you're there, stop on over, watch the PBA regional. I believe they are allowing fans, from what I understand, to come in and watch, to take in that action. It's pretty cool to see 125 people on the roster. So 2 full squads, and we're going to enjoy it while we're up there. And you can see a bunch of us in action. Outside of that, continue to support bowling, your local bowling centers, pro shop operators, and small business. If the stimulus checks are hitting, small business, spend them at small business. They need you, right? We need you. We're coming back. We're coming back heavy. Get out there, support them. Those big box stores, they made out like bandits during the shutdown. So let's go support the mom and pop shops. All right. All right. Until then, I'm signing off, and stay tuned to next week. I'm sure we'll have a couple different broadcasts coming to you next week, and hopefully everybody enjoyed this little session here. And if you forgot to ask a question and one comes to mind, shoot it across to me, and I will do my best to essentially answer your question and get back to you as soon as I can. All right, gang. Have a good evening. See you later.